Few figures hold the same sway in martial arts and film history as Bruce Lee. The mystery surrounding his unexpected death has given rise to endless theories that still resonate today. Join us as we take a look into the lesser-known details of his passing, piecing together his final day and examining the various speculations that surround his sudden demise. Early life. Before going into the various theories surrounding Bruce Lee's death, let's first explore the remarkable life of this iconic martial arts movie star. This will help set the stage for our upcoming discussions in this video. Bruce Lee was born on November 27, 1940 in San Francisco. However, Lee's family returned to Hong Kong when he was just 4 months old. This was where he would spend most of his childhood. Early exposure to the entertainment world was inevitable, thanks to his father's dual role as an opera singer and part-time actor. Even during his childhood, Lee made appearances in films, often taking on roles as a juvenile delinquent or street urchin. As a teenager, Lee became involved with local gangs and began learning kung fu to defend himself. He studied under Master Yip Man, one of the most respected kung fu masters in Hong Kong. Lee also took up dance lessons, which helped to improve his footwork and balance. Up until his late teens, Lee found himself increasingly entangled in street fights. He even at some point beat up the son of a notorious Triad family. Interestingly, this incident will later become relevant in a theory linked to his death, as you would soon find out. In 1958, a clash between Lee's Wing Chun school and a rival Choi Lee Foot martial arts school prompted a rooftop confrontation. Responding to an unjust punch from another youth, Bruce's retaliation was so forceful that he dislodged one of the boy's teeth, prompting the parents to file a complaint with the police. As his parents grew more uneasy about his involvement in street fights and brushes with law enforcement, they decided to send him to the United States shortly after he turned 18. There, he lived with family friends in Seattle. He went on to complete his high school education and earned his diploma from Edison Technical School on Capitol Hill. During his time in Seattle, he not only began instructing martial arts, but also inaugurated his very first martial arts school. In March 1961, he became a student at the University of Washington, where he studied philosophy and drama. During his time at the university, he met Linda Emery, his future wife, who was also a student with aspirations of becoming a teacher. Due to the prevailing restrictions on interracial relationships in several U.S. states, they chose to marry discreetly in August 1964. From their union, 2 children were born, Brandon and Shannon Lee. By 1964, he had relocated to Oakland, California, to establish a second martial arts school. It was during this period that he created his own technique known as Jeet Kune Do. This technique was a blend of ancient kung fu, fencing, boxing, and philosophy. He began teaching this in place of traditional martial arts. Gaining attention for his skills, he caught the eye of a television producer when he made a kung fu demonstration at a karate tournament in the Los Angeles area. This led to his role as Kato, the sidekick, in the Green Hornet TV series, which aired from 1966 to 1967. The Green Hornet introduced Bruce Lee to an American audience and was the first U.S. show to feature Asian-style martial arts. Although the director desired Lee to use the conventional American style of fighting with fists and punches, Lee declined, asserting that he would use his own style. While filming, his fast moves had to be slowed for the camera. After the Green Hornet was canceled, Lee struggled to secure acting roles. To supplement his income, he started offering private Jeet Kune Do lessons to Hollywood luminaries, including the likes of Steve McQueen. By 1971, Lee aimed to create his own TV series. He titled this The Warrior, and the concept revolved around a Chinese immigrant journeying to the American Wild West, utilizing his kung fu prowess to combat wrongdoers. The backdrop would be San Francisco, and Bruce Lee himself was intended to play the main character. Lee presented the idea to Warner Brothers, but they rejected it. Interestingly, Lee's concept was subsequently revamped and renamed Kung Fu, yet Warner Brothers failed to acknowledge his contribution. The studio claimed they had been working on a similar idea for some time. Sources suggest that Lee's accent played a role in his exclusion from the cast. In an interview, Lee attributed the decision to the studio's discomfort with casting an Asian lead. He expressed understanding, mentioning that he too might have reservations about casting a white lead in a Hong Kong project. Rise to stardom. Frustrated by his ongoing struggle to secure suitable roles, he made the decision to return to Hong Kong in 1971. Unbeknownst to him at the time, the Green Hornet had achieved success in Hong Kong, unofficially being referred to as the Kato Show. Much to his surprise, he found himself recognized as the star of the show. After engaging in negotiations with both Shaw Brothers Studio and Golden Harvest, Lee entered a film contract with Golden Harvest, committing to 2 film projects. And so the same year he returned to Hong Kong, Lee took on his first leading role in the movie, The Big Boss, which achieved overwhelming box office triumph across Asia, propelling him to stardom. Following this, in 1972, he starred in Fist of Fury, a film that shattered the box office records previously established by The Big Boss. Having completed his initial 2-year contract, Lee engaged in negotiations for a fresh agreement with Golden Harvest. Subsequently, he partnered with Raymond Chow to establish Concord Production, Inc., with Lee steering creative decisions and Chow overseeing administrative matters. Stepping into his 3rd film, The Way of the Dragon, Lee assumed comprehensive control over its production as the writer, director, star, and fight scene choreographer. In The Way of the Dragon, Lee introduced Chuck Norris to moviegoers as his opponent. Their memorable showdown is hailed as one of the greatest fight scenes in martial arts and film history. The combined global earnings of Fist of Fury and The Way of the Dragon amounted to approximately $100 million and $130 million, respectively. From August through October 1972, Lee began work on the creation of his 4th film under the Golden Harvest banner, Game of Death. During this period, he initiated filming for various scenes, most notably his memorable combat sequence with the towering 7 feet 2 inches American basketball star, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. However, by November 1972, production on Game of Death was abruptly halted when Warner Brothers extended an enticing offer to Lee, the chance to star as the lead role in Enter the Dragon. This film was the first to be produced in collaboration between Concord, Golden Harvest, and Warner Brothers. The filming of this new movie commenced in Hong Kong on February 1973 and successfully wrapped up by April 1973. Tragically, just a few months following the completion of Enter the Dragon and a mere 6 days before its anticipated release in Hong Kong, Lee's life was cut short. Final days. The final day of his life began on a positive note. On the morning of July 20th, 1973 in Hong Kong, the 32-year-old movie star met with Australian actor George Lazenby, known for his role as James Bond in the 1969 film Her Majesty's Secret Service. Lee's purpose for this meeting was to discuss a potential role for Lazenby in his upcoming film Game of Death. Following his conversation with Lazenby, Lee convened with his business partner Raymond Chow at his residence around 2 p.m. The duo engaged in discussions about the production of Game of Death until 4 p.m. Afterwards, they made their way to the home of Betty Ting Pei, a Taiwanese actress and Lee's colleague. There, they carefully reviewed the script for the film. Eventually, Chow took his leave to attend a scheduled dinner meeting. Later in the day, Lee complained of a headache. This prompted Betty to give him Equagesic, a medication that combined aspirin and meprobamate, an anti-anxiety drug. After this, Lee went to lie down on Betty's bed, and unfortunately, he never rose again. 2 hours after Lee had lain down, Betty made attempts to wake him up, but this proved futile. Following this, she urgently contacted Chow, who was at a restaurant at the time. Without delay, he hurried to her apartment and made his own attempts to awaken Lee, all to no avail. Filled with concern, they summoned a doctor who, for the following 10 minutes after he arrived, performed cardiopulmonary resuscitation, but it was all in vain. In a bid to avoid any potential scandal, Chow decided to call for an ambulance. Swiftly, Lee was transported to Queen Elizabeth Hospital, which was 25 minutes away. There, medical professionals continued their efforts to revive him. Unfortunately, despite their best efforts, the doctors officially recorded Lee's time of death as 11:30 p.m. Poisoned by jealous lover. Passing away at the age of 32 despite his outward appearance of vitality, Bruce Lee's death was a perplexing event that left many devoted fans struggling to accept the official explanations. The autopsy results revealed no signs of external injuries. Instead, the cause of his death was attributed to an accumulation of excess fluid, which had led to a 13% swelling of his brain and had been accompanied by a dangerously elevated pressure. Additionally, traces of marijuana were detected in his stomach. The official cause of Bruce Lee's demise was officially cited as cerebral edema, triggered by hypersensitivity to equagesic, the medication administered by Betty. It did not take long for an array of conspiracy theories to emerge. Chow, perhaps with Lee's reputation in mind, unintentionally added to the confusion by claiming that the martial arts icon had collapsed in the presence of his wife, Linda. However, this account was soon debunked by the Hong Kong press, casting doubt on Chow's credibility. This discrepancy fueled rumors that Lee might have been engaged in a romantic affair with Ting, or in the more sensational speculations that his death was linked to a debauched, drug-fueled gathering. Once the whispers of a connection between Betty and Lee gained traction, impassioned fans swiftly began pointing fingers at the Taiwanese actress as the potential cause of his demise. According to this narrative, it was Betty who had administered the fateful dose of equagesic, thereby leading some to speculate that she must have intentionally poisoned him. Amid the escalating conjecture, suggestions emerged that Lee and Betty might have been entangled in a romantic relationship, but Lee was purportedly seeking to terminate the relationship. In this narrative, Ting's alleged act was driven by a jealous rage and a desire for revenge. These speculative notions spilled over into the real world, triggering a chain of events. In Kuala Lumpur, students took to the streets, holding placards that ominously declared, "Betty killed Bruce." As rumors propagated throughout Hong Kong, claims arose that a hit had been placed on Ting's life. In the early days of August, an alarming bomb threat was reported to the police. A suspicious package, covered in Chinese writing, was discovered in a public square, bearing the message, "Betty Ting knows the cause of Bruce Lee's death." The bomb, upon inspection, turned out to be a false alarm. It contained only refuse. However, the following weeks saw the planting of 3 additional fake bombs across the city, each accompanied by messages such as "Revenge for Bruce Lee." An inquisition. The British colonial government found itself in a predicament, as while celebrity scandals could be brushed aside, bomb threats demanded attention. In a bid to reinstate a sense of assurance and tranquility, authorities took a decisive step by initiating a comprehensive inquiry into the circumstances surrounding Bruce Lee's passing. Yet, despite this formal investigation, a perplexing dilemma emerged. The experts convened could not reach a unanimous consensus regarding the underlying cause of Lee's death. The autopsy had unveiled the medical explanation, cerebral edema, but it left the coroner in the dark as to what had precipitated this condition. Initially, 2 of Lee's attending physicians pointed to the marijuana he had consumed on that fateful afternoon as the potential culprit. However, this hypothesis was swiftly discredited, as scientific evidence contradicted the notion that marijuana could induce cerebral edema. With the investigation stalling, a decision was made to summon forensic scientist Donald Terry from London. With a wealth of experience overseeing over 1,000 autopsies, Terry was entrusted with looking into the Lee case. His hypothesis as regards Lee's death centered on the possibility of a severe allergic reaction to aspirin, leading to anaphylactic shock. Faced with a lack of more plausible alternatives, the government reluctantly accepted this conclusion. However, a significant portion of Lee's fan base rejected this explanation. It seemed implausible since Lee had routinely consumed aspirin throughout his adult life without having any adverse effects. Additionally, the theory of anaphylaxis, an extreme allergic reaction, failed to gain traction for several compelling reasons. Typically, anaphylaxis is accompanied by an array of symptoms such as inflammation of the trachea, neck, tongue, and lips, alongside hives and red, itchy skin around the mouth. In dire cases, the swelling of the throat leads to airway blockage, resulting in asphyxia and ultimately cerebral edema. However, the autopsy done on Lee failed to uncover any indications of these anaphylactic symptoms. This in itself cast doubt on the possibility of an aspirin allergy being the cause of Lee's demise. Heat stroke. In a 2018 biography, American author Matthew Polly put forward an alternate theory. He proposed that the cerebral edema responsible for Lee's demise might have been triggered by a combination of overexertion and heat stroke. This angle sheds light on why heat stroke wasn't considered as a factor back then. During that era, understanding of the condition was limited. The experts had fixated on the events of July 20th, 1973, failing to give due consideration to prior evidence. Interestingly, a few months preceding his passing, Lee had undergone a surgery to remove sweat glands from his armpits. According to Polly, this procedure, driven by Lee's aesthetic concern for on-screen appearance, could potentially have hindered his body's ability to dissipate heat. Adding weight to this hypothesis, about 10 weeks before his death, on May 10, 1973, Lee entered a small dubbing room for dialogue recording of Enter the Dragon. To preserve the quality of the soundtrack, the air conditioner was turned off. This caused the room to become increasingly hot. After approximately half an hour in such conditions, Lee fainted and experienced convulsions. Luckily, prompt medical attention saved him from dire consequences. He was diagnosed with cerebral edema, and this was addressed in the nick of time. It is believed that his collapse on that very day was most likely due to heat stroke. Compounding this theory, records from the Hong Kong Observatory reveal that the day Lee died, July 20th, 1973, marked the hottest day of the month in the tropical city. Polly's perspective further suggests that Lee's exertions in the sweltering heat on that very day might have induced heat stroke, exacerbating the cerebral edema that ultimately proved fatal. Triads and Kung Fu masters. Another perspective floated the idea that if Betty, the Taiwanese actress, wasn't acting on her own accord, she could have been an alleged hired assassin for various triad syndicates. Despite a lack of concrete evidence, this notion gained traction. Lee's past encounters with triads, including his face-off with the son of a local gang leader during his youthful street skirmishes, lent credence to this notion. It was even believed that Lee's refusal to pay protection money to Hong Kong's triads on his film sets could have led to his demise. According to this narrative, he incurred the wrath of these criminal organizations, who might have orchestrated his assassination. Alternatively, a different line of speculation implicated mainland Chinese gangs, suggesting that they had motivations to eliminate Lee. This theory proposed that the increased popularity of Lee's Cantonese films posed a threat to the dominance of Mandarin-language cinema. Fearing the impact on their investments, these groups could have seen eliminating Lee as a means to safeguard their financial interests. Another intriguing theory presents the notion that Chinese kung fu masters might have been responsible for Lee's demise due to his involvement in teaching martial arts to foreign students. Despite warnings from fellow masters, Lee remained steadfast in training American students. This persistency supposedly led to an attack using a dim mak technique, famously dubbed the touch of death. This fatal technique involves striking the opponent's pressure points, which eventually causes their death. While this remains firmly within the realm of conspiracy theories, Lee's practice of training foreign students in martial arts frequently sparked discussions in Hong Kong. Notably, American icon Chuck Norris had to intervene at one point to quell a rumor suggesting that Lee had been teaching him kung fu. This underscored the extent to which such rumors had permeated popular discourse. Now, to bolster the notion of kung fu masters targeting Lee, a significant incident occurred back in 1964 within Oakland's Chinatown. Lee engaged in a contentious private match with Wong Jackman, a direct disciple of Ma Kin Fung, renowned for his expertise in Xing Yi Quan, Northern Shaolin, and Tai Chi. According to Lee's account, the Chinese community issued him an ultimatum to cease teaching non-Chinese individuals. His refusal prompted a challenge from Wong for a combat encounter. The stipulation was clear. If Lee lost, he would need to close down his school. If he emerged victorious, he could continue teaching non-Chinese individuals. Wong, on the other hand, contradicted this narrative. He stated that his decision to challenge Lee stemmed from Lee's boastful claims during one of his performances at a Chinatown theater where he asserted that he could defeat anyone in San Francisco. Wong emphasized that his challenge wasn't rooted in discrimination against non-Chinese, including whites. Now, regarding that private match between Lee and Wong, there are varying versions of events. According to Wong, the confrontation stretched an unusually prolonged 20 to 25 minutes. Wong's account depicts a scenario where he initially anticipated a serious yet respectful contest, only to be met with Lee's aggressive onslaught, seemingly driven by an intent to kill. Wong recounted that he extended a traditional handshake, which Lee apparently reciprocated. However, Lee allegedly employed a spear-like motion with his hand, directed toward Wong's eyes. Faced with this threat to his safety, Wong claimed he refrained from delivering potentially lethal strikes, fearing legal consequences. Instead, he used concealed cufflinks under his sleeves to manage the situation. Conversely, according to Lee's narrative and corroborated by certain witnesses, the engagement concluded within a mere 3 minutes, resulting in a decisive triumph for Lee. Adding another layer to the discourse, Michael Dorgan's 1980 book, Bruce Lee's Toughest Fight, introduced yet another perspective. Dorgan suggested that the match concluded due to Lee's exhaustion, rather than a definitive blow from either combatant. Now it's time for today's subscriber's pick. Take a look at this image. On the right, Bruce Lee assumes a formidable fighting stance, exuding strength and confidence. However, the image on the left paints a contrasting scene depicting Bruce Lee lying peacefully in a coffin. These stark visuals beckon us to reflect on the contrasts in Bruce Lee's life and his eventual passing. So what are your thoughts on the possible factors that contributed to Bruce Lee's untimely demise? Let us know what you think in the comments section. Jealous business partner. Moving away from this, another figure who has aroused suspicion is none other than Raymond Chow. As previously mentioned, Chow and Lee maintained a professional partnership, serving as co-founders of Concord Production, Inc. This is the film company which played a pivotal role in bringing to life some of Lee's most celebrated cinematic works, including Way of the Dragon, Enter the Dragon, and Game of Death. However, beneath the veneer of their professional collaboration, whispers about their personal relationship being marked by tensions have persisted. Skeptics who questioned the official narrative about Lee's death also speculated whether Chow could have orchestrated the demise as a preemptive measure. The hypothesis was that Chow aimed to prevent the potential exit of Lee, his prized star, to the United States, where vast opportunities abounded. Interestingly, Lee's tragic passing presented an intriguing twist of fate for Chow. With the martial arts legend no longer in the picture, Chow assumed full control over Concord. This included ownership of the rights to some of Lee's most famous films. This fact has fueled some intriguing theories, with some asserting that Chow could have shrewdly leveraged Lee's enduring posthumous fame to introduce his films to an international market that craved the excitement of martial arts action. As for substantiated facts, one cannot overlook the cynical reality that Chow eventually decided to release Game of Death years after Lee's untimely demise. This move, however, was met with controversy. The film incorporated a mere 11 minutes of recorded footage featuring Lee himself. The remainder of the film's scenes were pieced together using lookalikes and stand-ins. Remarkably, Chow even chose to incorporate footage from Lee's actual funeral, a decision that undoubtedly raised eyebrows. In this web of speculation, facts, and conjecture, Chow's role in the posthumous legacy of Bruce Lee continues to be a subject of fascination and intrigue among fervent fans and curious minds alike. Did he drink too much water? Among Bruce Lee's most renowned philosophical quotes is, "Be water, my friend." Ironically, one theory surrounding his demise links his death to the very substance he spoke of: water. An article featured in the December 2022 edition of the Clinical Kidney Journal looked into the various theories surrounding the cause of Lee's passing. The article postulated that his fatal cerebral edema might have been precipitated by a condition known as hyponatremia. So what exactly is hyponatremia? Essentially, it refers to a state where the blood sodium levels fall below the normal range, thereby disrupting the body's electrolyte balance. Conducted by a group of medical professionals hailing from the Autonomous University in Madrid, Spain, the study suggests that Lee could have inadvertently consumed an excessive amount of water. This excess intake might have led to a dilution of sodium in his bloodstream, impairing his ability to expel excess water and maintain a healthy water balance. Interestingly, the researchers highlight that the volume of water Bruce Lee reportedly consumed on the day of his passing would not typically be sufficient to induce hyponatremia in a person with ordinary habits. However, the study draws attention to indications that suggest Lee's predisposition to the condition due to certain lifestyle factors. Taking a closer look at Lee's lifestyle, the researchers were able to identify a series of behaviors that put him at risk for hyponatremia. His dietary choices, heavy reliance on alcohol and juice, contributed to what the study termed a chronic fluid intake. Furthermore, Lee's use of marijuana and his engagement with various drugs, some of which impact the kidney's ability to expel surplus fluids, further compounded his vulnerability to the condition. Interestingly, the symptoms Lee exhibited leading up to his demise closely matched the documented manifestations of fatal hyponatremia cases. Considering these insights, one is prompted to question, could an excess of water have indeed played a role in the untimely demise of Bruce Lee? The hypothesis prompts us to think about how our everyday choices can impact our health in ways we might not immediately recognize. A family curse. One of the more far-fetched controversies revolves around the notion that a family curse is responsible for Bruce Lee's untimely demise. Advocates of this theory point to the unfortunate fact that Lee's parents had suffered the loss of a son before Bruce's birth. Believing that this curse afflicted male members of the family, proponents suggest that Bruce's parents bestowed upon him the moniker Little Phoenix, a name traditionally designated for girls. Bruce's mother, reputedly deeply superstitious, chose to give him a girl's name in an attempt to outsmart any malevolent spirits, tricking them into perceiving her son as a daughter. This act was supposedly intended to shield Bruce from the perceived influence of the curse. Interestingly, this curse is also invoked to explain the tragic passing of Bruce's own son, Brandon Lee, at the age of 28 during the filming of The Crow. Devotees of this theory highlight the eerie parallel between Brandon's accidental on-set shooting and the fate of Bruce's character in Game of Death, who is similarly shot while filming. It is argued that the heart-wrenching loss of both Brandon and his father played a role in solidifying the concept of a Lee family curse. However, it's important to note that this theory overlooks certain facts. For instance, Bruce's older brother Peter lived to the age of 69, and his younger brother Robert, an Hong Kong musician, is alive to this day. This suggests that the alleged curse's impact isn't uniformly evident across all family members. It's worth noting that Bruce Lee's wife, Linda, has taken steps in the past to debunk certain theories and rumors that have circulated about his death. She vehemently dismissed the notion that Lee was a heavy marijuana user during his lifetime. Additionally, she firmly stands by the official cause of his death, which was cerebral edema. Linda has also expressed her strong disagreement with the idea that Lee was involved in a romantic affair with Betty. Her statements serve as a testament to her commitment to clarifying the narrative surrounding her late husband's life and passing. In the face of these numerous conspiracy theories, Bruce Lee's legacy remains unshaken. These unfounded speculations have not tarnished his charisma, his exceptional physical abilities, the enchantment of his movies, or even his rather unexpected status as a style influencer. In fact, following Lee's passing, his films garnered a devoted cult following, contributing to his enduring popularity. Bruce Lee himself ascended to become one of the most prominent pop culture icons of the 20th century, widely recognized for reshaping the portrayal of Asians in American cinema. His impact goes beyond the silver screen, encompassing a profound influence on cultural perceptions. Linda's perspective encapsulates this sentiment. Even after all these years, she noted that people still ponder over the circumstances of Bruce's passing. However, she expressed a preference for focusing on how he lived. This perspective captures the essence of a man whose life and contributions continue to inspire and captivate, regardless of the myriad controversies that have emerged in the wake of his legacy. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.